going to start right now. My name is Jeroen Mourik. I'm a local guy, just like you. I'm a level 8. I live in the Canary Islands. I'm Dutch from origin, which means that English is also not my first mother language. I'm lucky enough, though, to have lived in countries where my main communication was English. So I actually review in English. I don't review in Dutch. Excuse me. We are going to start with a little disclaimer, and that's me by saying, clicking on the wrong thing, and that's me just by saying that I'm not affiliated with Local Guides team, as in with Google. This is just a webinar, a meetup, virtual meetup by fellow local guides. I speak for myself. My insights are gathered from reading lots of local guides, connect posts, and other blogs related to reviewing in general. That's where I got my own knowledge from. And again, I don't work for Google, so just to have that clear. As I said, I'm a local guide 8, and I started off with mostly reviewing. I'm not so much a photographer, and slowly after I educated myself, I became more of a map editor. But again, my main point level I gained through writing reviews. So not that I particularly feel myself very skilled in writing. Writing is actually not something I feel that I'm particularly good at. However, as a user of Google Maps, I really depend on the reviews by others, because I travel a lot and I really make a lot of day-to-day decisions based on the ratings and reviews by others. So I feel really obliged to partake and share my own experiences, and thereby also helping other people in return. So I mentioned before that you can introduce yourself. I'm going to switch off that annoying thing at the bottom the moment I'm done with the introductions about the rules. The reason for that being is that if people are arriving late, that they can still introduce themselves, and then I'll just switch it off. So at the moment, I'm going to see if I can bring my slides in, and I'm just going to get rid of that overlay, because I know that that is taking away the some of the screen. So that should help. I'm going to take away, this is a lot going on here. This is where it's helpful when you have someone else on the show with you, where you can just, where is it? Okay, there we go. Perfect. Cool. So I'm just going to start by talking a little bit about the rules, and I'm going to put them on solo here. And I noticed that by doing that, you can't read the bottom. Well, I'll start with the top. So just as a reminder, all reviews have to be your personal first-hand experiences. You can't write hearsay type of reviews. And with hearsay, I mean, if you heard from friends something about a place, you can't then write a review for a point of interest on Google Maps based on the stuff that you heard from those third parties. Reviews have to be your personal experiences based on your visit to the actual place. Okay, so also if you go to a website and you have looked at the pictures, you can't all of a sudden think you can review that location because you have seen pictures of it. That's not how it works. You need to physically have been there. All reviews need to be relevant and on topic. That also means no unnecessary details or incorrect content, which is kind of obvious. It doesn't say it so like black and white that you are not allowed to copy and paste per se. However, the moment you start copying and pasting anything, you are either copy and pasting text that is written by someone else, or maybe you are repeating parts of reviews or complete reviews that you also have written yourself somewhere else at another location or at another site. You have to be really, really careful with that. All reviews that you share on Google Maps need to be unique, as in there should be no duplicate reviews or very similar reviews on your review timeline. It's not permitted to write what you call that, promotions, and with that you are also not allowed to mention other websites, phone numbers, social media accounts, Don't even talk about the competitor's name. Stay on topic, only talk about the place that you are reviewing. And then it seems a bit obvious, but what's your language? There are also certain signs like characters that you may use that have an effect on the spam filters that are actively screening reviews, and we talk about that later. But obviously, yeah, your language is important. And then last but not least, be careful not to make your reviews too personal. Don't actually talk negative about an individual. Look at the experience in general, and when there was, let's say, a waiter or the owner itself being unfriendly or friendly towards you, then just talk about the owner or staff, and don't say Mr. such and such did this or said that, and then it becomes more personal. So that's kind of the basics. Important that you keep that in mind. I'm pretty sure that most of you are fully aware of that. I just need to go to the middle of my screen here. Cool. So I noticed that more people have joined us here. Hello, Dr. Ashish Denayak. I hope I say that correct. If you could just say also where you're from, that would be great. Thank you very much. I'm not going to introduce all the people. I might show you comments on the screen, but I'm not going to talk to each person individual. I'm just going to go on with the presentation right now. So besides these basic contribution rules, you should also be aware that the community guidelines, and that is related to the local guides program, says something about that you could get suspended if you only share poor quality content. And when we are talking about reviewing, poor quality content would be 1 or 2 word or repetitive commentary in your reviews. So these kind of great or yummy food or awesome view, when it's when you're reviewing a view platform, then obviously it makes, it's not very detailed, and it is of poor quality. In particular, since I said earlier that you're not supposed to share irrelevant information. And if you give something a 5 star and then you say great afterwards, yeah, well, the 5 star is already telling the reader that you are very positive about this place. So just by saying yummy food for a restaurant and you gave it 5 stars, the yummy food is not saying anything more than you already giving 5 stars, because basically if you're rating a restaurant and you give it 5 stars, people may expect that you like the food, right? So from that point of view, these sort of 1-word reviews or even 2 or 3 words reviews, you have to be really careful if they are still adding valuable information and relevant information rather than repeating yourself. I often see, and I often report local guides that use what I call the obvious rating formula, and I'm going to just give that solo here as well. So if I'm talking about the obvious rating formula, the obvious thing is that if you are, let's say, reviewing a bakery, then you know that a bakery is a place where you buy bread. That's obvious. And people already know that on the basis of the category of the particular store. Talking about a bakery, the category says bakery, people already assume that, yeah, this is a place where you can bread. Your rating is 5 star, so in other words, great. And then your formula would be a great place to buy bread. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not much better than just saying great. or because, yeah, a great place to buy bread, you're just giving a definition of what a bakery is about. So I see a lot of people that think that that is good enough, and then writing a full sentence and thereby maybe fulfilling the need of not doing 1-word reviews and not getting filtered through the bad quality filters and get suspended. But I tell you, if I see a review by a local guide that only uses, I'm saying only uses, the obvious rating formula, where it's all 1-sentence reviews, and basically the person is sharing definitions of places, like a school, this is where people go to study. Well, yeah, that's just like you're being a dictionary. You're giving me a definition of the category. That is not relevant information, right? So this is really important that you keep that in mind. Now, the obvious rating formula is perfect if you use it as an introduction to come into your review. And then the point is you use it to introduce your why. Now, there are a few exceptions, and these exceptions are best in town, best in the country, or best in the world. I think that if you give something a 5-star and then you say best hamburger in town, and it is clearly a fast food restaurant or even a hamburger restaurant, by you labeling it as the best in town as far as you are concerned, that is not, for me, that is a little bit more. It's not much more, but it's a little bit more than just repeating your star rating. But the obvious rating formula as a starting sentence for your review is great. And it also gets you in the mindset when you then start continuing and answering the why did you give it a certain rating. So why did you give it 5 stars, or why did you give it 2 stars? The moment you then, after you give that introduction, then you can focus on the details. So you start with the overall, and then you go into the details. So that's perfectly fine to use this formula. Just don't only use this formula, is my advice, or risk getting your account flagged based on poor quality. So another thing that you have to be careful with, and there are not clear rules about this, but I'm just giving you my perspective here, is that when you are reviewing brands or chains, you have to be really, really careful and make sure that it is clear from your review that you are reviewing the actual place. And with that, I mean that if you have been to one McDonald's, you can't all of a sudden use that experience of one McDonald's restaurant and then write reviews about other McDonald's that you can find on Google Maps and claim, well, all McDonald's are the same, so whatever I have to say about McDonald's is applicable to all the different McDonald's restaurants. That is breaking the rules really, really badly. So watch out for that. You should really write about each place. And then if you are reviewing a brand or a chain store, then my advice is to make that obvious that you have been there. So say something about the place that is typical. If there are menu items that are only available in that particular store or in that country or whatever, if you can say something specific about the decorations, or even better, show pictures that are clearly related to that location. The fact that you write a review that may be difficult to distinguish from one McDonald's to another, that's okay if you then at least have a photo to prove that you have been to that particular location. Be careful with that. So that's just a tip from my point of view. And of course, it's possible that you might, let's say you go to an Apple store and you bought an iPhone there. Now, if you bought an iPhone there, sure, you can talk about what you think about the iPhone and if you're happy with it, yes or no. But don't forget, if your review is only about the iPhone, then how can a reader distinguish your review about this iPhone where the same iPhone is for sale at all the stores? So my advice is to always put something related to the actual location, and particularly also when you are spending some time about the products. Personally, I would say products are not the most relevant topic. Yes, it can be part of it, but I think really you should talk about the staff, the location, the service, and all that, all the usual focus points related to stores in your town. Okay, so the why is really a great way of coming up with content for your review. So you're aiming to write a detailed, relevant, thoughtful review. You want to go beyond the obvious few things, so you have to say why. And the moment you start coming up with reasons, then you didn't like the food. Well, why didn't you like the food? Well, the food was cold, the food was too salty, I didn't like the seasoning or the spicing, the meat was too greasy. Whatever it is you have to say and you had on your mind when you decided that you didn't like the food, that is part of your, that could be part of your experience that you are sharing. Now, I read a lot of reviews by other people, as I mentioned before. That's how I got in reviewing myself. And I noticed that some people use reviews also to share tips, to inform people if you go there, particularly if you go, let's say, to a park or to a place that is a bit of an experience. You could tell people what to bring along. Don't forget a raincoat, or bring a bottle of water because there is no place to buy a drink there, or there are no water fountains. Whatever kind of tip you share, again, is really helpful and makes your review very valuable. So those tips are not necessarily why you're giving it a 5-star, because that is you talking to other future visitors to that place and giving them some advice based on your experience. I see that some people also share what I call background information, like facts, a bit like a travel guide where people give a bit about the history of the place, or some factual information about things that are there. Like you're giving a description of the place rather than giving your opinion about the place. Now, these descriptive parts, again, are totally fine, but I wouldn't have them as a standalone. And you have to be really careful not to copy and paste Wikipedia, because that is going to be, again, an infringement of the rules and would get you in serious trouble. I also don't think that simply being a guidebook and only sharing facts, that demonstrates that you have been there, and therefore make your review read as a reliable review. I mean, how easy would it be to read another guidebook or to read the website and get information about the place with regards to the facts and the history and what is there and what it looks like, and then simply start describing the place? That is not your experience. That is not then giving your first-hand experience as being there. So keep that in mind as well when you are writing your review. And then in some cases, it is relevant to also share information about where it is. Now, remember, we are actually doing this for Google Maps. We are not doing this for TripAdvisor or other reviewing platforms. This is for Google Maps. And one of the fortes of Google Maps is obviously getting people from A to B. So we may assume that in general, Google Maps should be capable of telling people how to navigate to this place. However, I've been to places myself many times where from the street, you look at the front or the door of the place where you're supposed to enter, and you just don't recognize it. You don't expect it to be there. It's still a little bit of a guessing game or looking around. You might just have to go around the corner, or it's behind something or whatever. Those kind of descriptions of where it is, where you give people some navigation pointers, are fine when they are relevant. If it's just you telling the obvious, then you're just clearly filling up a space for your review, and maybe doing so just to get your extra points. But people won't like your review because they don't need that information. If you want to please the reader, then obviously you want to be what's the word? Be relevant, and don't bother them with stuff that is not necessary, right? Okie dokie. So this is all still very basic, right? You probably think, okay, this is not going to be like this all the time. I'm going to have a different perspective coming up soon, but I'm still sharing some of my my views on what to think about when you are writing a review. So what do I consider quality reviews? Well, as I mentioned, they have to be thoughtful and detailed. This is coming from the local guides team. This is all on the community. I literally copied and pasted some of this. Share notable information about a place, and share notable information about your experience. And this is where, if you like it or not like it, and the reviewing part, your judgment comes in. Writing information about a place doesn't necessarily include a judgment, unless you say, well, it's always noisy there, then yes, that could be a judgment. But if you just say that that there are lots of tables, then you haven't said if you like it or not. You haven't explained why you have given it a certain rating. And in certain cases, you may actually want to pay attention to what I call the unique selling points. And with that, I mean, let's go back to the McDonald's. I know that McDonald's are not the same in every country, and that certain McDonald's in certain countries have special things on the menu that are unique to that particular country. So if you are a tourist in a country where they have different items on the menu than you would normally expect in a standard global McDonald's, then you can talk about those unique selling points. What is relevant information that is specific and makes this place stand out? And then when you are giving positives and negatives, we always have to keep in mind that you are influencing people's decision. You are also affecting the success of a business. Your review should always be fair. And with fair, I mean, people may have a bad day. If you have something to complain, particularly like if the food is cold, tell the waiter that the food is cold and see then how the waiter responds, and if that is a good way of how they dealt with your feedback. If you are just going to be quiet and eating the cold food with a grumpy face and then write a negative review without even communicating there and then when the food arrived that something was wrong with the food, I don't think you're being fair. It's part of customer behavior that you give verbal feedback directly. And you should also keep in mind that certain conversations or certain types of information where it's almost like you are talking to the owner rather than you are talking to other potential customers, that you may come to the conclusion that certain topics or content is clearly not appropriate for Google Maps reviews. That doesn't mean it's not true. It doesn't mean that that's not your experience. But why have a big battle with an owner in front of other potential customers? People probably won't even take your review that serious if it just clearly looks that you are really angry. So those kind of situations, it's better to step back and not share that in your review. And maybe later on when things have cooled down, you may still give your negative feedback, but in a more distant way without it being so, the storm in the wine glass, as I would call it. So be fair and keep that in mind as well when you're reviewing. So, and yeah, this is kind of the an obvious thing, but on the other hand, no. A lot of reviewers that get in trouble, and I'm not saying everyone gets in trouble, but occasionally people do get in trouble, and that's when you start making accusations that you cannot back up with evidence. Make sure that you are reviewing your personal observations and your personal opinions and write them down as such so that it is clear that you experience such and such. So if you say the floors are always dirty here, that might not be true, and that is a pretty strong accusation. That probably get flagged and may even end up your review being removed. If you say, when I was there, the floors were rather dirty, or I encountered dirty floors, or whatever way you phrase it, that then puts it into the perspective of that moment, that day, and you are the judge what is clean and what is not clean. The moment that comes from the page, as in if that is what you have written, that can be read also between the lines, then you are not making big accusations that could make the owner of the place turn to a lawyer and say, I'm going to sue that guy, he's hurting my business, which has sadly happened. There has been cases where businesses have gone to the law and also bully people to take their reviews away. But if you are writing from your personal perspective and your personal observations, and that is clear, and you're sharing opinions, then there is no judge that is going to say that you are wrong, because how can a judge decide what your opinions are? But if you say this is always the case, then yeah, be careful with that. Right. And then I'm gonna say that you can actually help ideas of what it is you want to write about by simply thinking about the census. So if you're stuck with writing, think about What can you see? What are you hearing? What do you smell, taste? What does it feel like? Is it warm, cold? Are the seats comfortable? All those basic senses will give you input that gives you your experience, right? Because your experience is kind of related to your senses, and your experience is also related to the emotions you feel during the experience. So think about stuff like, did it make you sad? Did it make you joyful? Were there surprises? Were the things disappointing, funny? Was it calming experience? Was it scary or heartwarming? Were you aggravated because things didn't go the way it was supposed to? Were people kind? Did you trust the business and whatever it is they were doing for you? Were there awkward moments? All these sort of emotional labels are all ways of talking about your experience. So if you are stuck with writing, then keep that in mind. Think about emotions and keep about the senses for inspiration, what it is you could write about. And here comes a tip that I'm gonna actually take away the scoreboard in a moment and just talk live to the camera. This is what I think you should be doing. You should be thinking like a movie director, and this is something that I find a really helpful, was a metaphor to do your reviews. And I'm gonna say, and this is where I have to go back to my agenda because I've got this. There we are. Okie dokie. So think like a movie director. And the reason I'm saying that is that when you are writing a review, it is a little bit like storytelling. And when you are creating a movie like a movie director, you are also communicating a story or sharing an experience with your audience. And some of the crafts, the things that movie directors can do by communicating their story and the emotions, you as a writer, as an author of your review, can do as well. And if you are not a natural writer like I am, then sometimes it helps to use a metaphor to put you into the shoes of this movie director, and then all of a sudden things start to make sense. And for me, it was with when I'm reviewing and I start thinking about, okay, I now want to make this little movie where I'm sharing my experience and I'm giving advice or my opinion about this place. How would I do that as a movie director? Well, like with movies, you can have genres, and so it could be with a review as well. And when I say genres, I'm talking about, is your review going to be a horror story? Hopefully not. Maybe it's going to be a drama, a moment of laughter, a moment of tears. I don't know. Hopefully it was a joyful, feel-good movie, right? And then there are people that make a bit more distant documentary style reviews, like filmmakers can make documentaries. And I have to say, I used to be, and I just noticed because I didn't think about this for a while, that my reviews went back to the documentary style. This has been my general modus. And with that, I mean is I have things in my head that I like to report. When I go to a restaurant, there are certain items that I tend to talk about, and just by listing them a bit staccato and just giving my facts and my opinions, there's no particularly dramatic storyline, and I'm not taking people along a journey. No, I'm just sharing my facts, as in how I experienced it, and just putting it out there in staccato type sentences, and that is okay, and they can be perfectly informative reviews, and some people might actually prefer those type of reviews. But I found later, when I came with my movie director insight, that writing other genres of reviews actually receive a lot more likes and feedback from owners as well, because people tend to, you grab more their attention, and you connect better when you may go for one of those other genres. So fine if you feel that your particular specialty is being a documentary style reviewer, don't worry about that. That's cool. I'm just saying that from my personal experience, unless you have maybe a rather specific documentary style, but from my personal experience, the other genres get more feedback from owners and likes from people than my documentary style ones. Now, as a movie director, as the maker of your review, you could have different scenes, right? And with scenes, usually in a film, a scene is from location to location. Well, maybe you also have scenes where you could talk about locations. For example, I go to a zoo. Different scenes could be the process of, and the experience I write about could be related to buying the ticket and standing in the queue in preparation of entering through the gate, but it's part of the experience. You stand just outside the gate buying your ticket, you write about that. That could be scene one. Then you walk into the zoo and you need to go to the bathroom first before you then start walking around the zoo. Maybe, or maybe not, you want to include a scene about your experience with relation to the toilets, how clean they were, whatever. And then your next scene might be the fantastic moment you had when you were visiting the lion section or whatever it was that you were visiting in the zoo. So you could have different scenes, and depending on the type of place you are reviewing and the category, basically, there may be types of scenes that you could even put on a script list where you say, well, when I'm reviewing such and such type of place, these are the kind of scenes that I may want to look at. And you could take notes for yourself, and I call them focus lists, where you are basically reminding yourself per category what the things you could write about, in case you have your writer's block. Now, the other thing that movie makers do is they use a camera to bring the story across. And you, as a writer, also have a camera, and the camera is basically the projection of your mind, because you are usually writing down what it is you're thinking about. You are formulating thoughts that you want to share, or statements that you want to share, that you project on the screen in your mind, and then you put them to sentences, and that is how you are creating that story, or your text. Now, as with a movie director, you as a reviewer can decide to focus on details by zooming in or zooming out. So again, if you are in a restaurant, you decide to focus on the paintings on the wall and say something about what quirky artwork is there and how you enjoyed that, or whatever. That could be just you zooming in. You may be zooming in on the cutlery, the forks and knives that are next to your plate, and show that they are not clean, and talk about that they may want to do something about that dishwasher because, hey, you see dirt on it, or you find lipstick on the cup, or whatever, right? So you as a director can point your camera at different things, and you can zoom in and you can zoom out. Sometimes you just want to give the overall, and sometimes you want to focus on those details. And you may be writing notes or memos for yourself if you're not crafting your review straight at the location while you're there, but you're going to finish it later. You can write all your notes and memos with regards to these different focus points, and then later you may come to the post-production, where these are the focus lists I spoke about before. What is it you want to? What are your scenes? What are the things you want to focus on? And then you get to the editing. And I should have changed the order here, because when I say take one, take two, I basically also mean that you can rewrite. And that's the great thing about Google Maps these days, is that before, when you typed something and you posted it, yes, you could go back to your review, but the moment you posted it, it was publicly available, you published it, and there it was. And maybe when you are typing your notes, or you are writing your review, but it still need a little bit of polishing up, and you still have to revisit it with fresh eyes. Nowadays, we can start writing our reviews and leave them as drafts inside the app, and you can visit them later and work on them again. So The great thing nowadays is that you could do your take one at the location, write some keywords so you remember what it is you could review about, and then later, within a couple of days, when you're at home, you go back to that draft, you do take two, you start writing more elaborately, and then you might still save it as a draft, and then thinking it's finished, and then the third time you visit it, you look at it with fresh eyes, and then you read it in one go and you say, yes, this is what I'm happy with, and then you publish. So that's what I'm saying with take one, take two. Don't necessarily, whatever it is you type, to ensure that you are sharing quality with your followers. Maybe not relevant for you yet if you haven't got followers yet, but the moment you start publishing new stuff and you have followers, those followers will be notified straight away. So if your review is initially a raw diamond and only afterwards you're going to polish your diamond, then the moment you share the raw diamond, it's the raw diamond that your followers are going to see. So it becomes more important with the change of the local guides program and having followers reading whatever you publish the moment you publish it or get notifications for it, is that you may want to spend more time in stepping back and do your editing. And with your editing, that's what you can do as well, is that maybe when you write everything, that all the things you could focus on and all the different scenes, that you end up concluding, gosh, this became a full feature film. I'm only reviewing a hamburger here. People are going to spend $5 on a hamburger maybe. Is it really worth a review that long? I don't think so. And now what is it that makes my review stand out and relevant to my readers? And maybe read some other reviews, other movies by other people that have been to the same place and don't necessarily repeat. And if everyone is saying that it is the best hamburger in town, maybe you want to say something else. Or if everyone is talking about the artwork, then you can skip the artwork because they will probably read it in someone else's review. So use the time and the functionality of the app to work on your review afterwards. It's so much better if you give it a little bit of editing. Be a critic to yourself. And now I'm going to look at what successful reviews are, and that is basically a cue for me to go back to my slides. I haven't seen any questions yet, so if you have questions, by all means, please share them in the comments, and I'll be able to go at them later. If you want to say, hey, I think this is a great way, or Jerome, you're being silly, who wants to think about being a movie director while you're actually writing reviews? Any feedback is welcome at this stage, so please let me know in the comments. It will be most appreciated. So I'm bringing back the thing here. This was what I had written about. I'm just taking that away. This is what I had written about, and I also need to take that screen away again, otherwise it's blocking that. There we go. So this is all we talked about with the movie director: the genre, create scenes, transition, story jumps, timeline, camera, zoom in, so the different scenes, take one, and the editing. So what makes successful reviews? And I already gave some of it away. It really helps if you have a target audience in mind. And with that, I also mean not just think about who are the sort of people that may visit this place, but also are you writing from a parent perspective? So do you have children, and are you going to give insights about how child-friendly this place is, and thereby your perspective is that as a parent? Or maybe you are reviewing with insights that is relevant to people that are really into archaeology and history, and thereby focusing on the quality of the presentation in a museum or whatever. You can decide as part of your story from what perspective you are writing this, and that often has to do with your own passions and your own knowledge, so to speak, and that will come across. So what I'm trying to say is that if you write from a certain perspective, then people will be able to relate with you. Even if they are not a parent, they can still maybe say, this is a parent talking, this makes sense as a parent, and yes, good review. But hey, I'm not a parent, so certain elements of this review may not be relevant for me, but I appreciate the feedback relating to the perspective of a parent. So to engage with your audience, it helps to write from a certain perspective. As I mentioned with these different genres, is it a horror story, or are you writing a feel-good story? And are you talking about the census, and are you talking about these emotions? That will help the reader engage in and also partake in the emotions that you are projecting on your film screen, right? And when you drag people along in your story, I have found that you get a lot more likes for your reviews, because people, they have that connection other than that dry information that I mentioned before. Make sure that your length of the review is appropriate. And with that, I mean is that if you're talking about a place where they sell cars, and if you are buying a car yourself, you may be spending thousands of dollars, most likely. Well, when people make a decision as important as spending $1,000, maybe it's okay to have slightly longer reviews. I don't think if someone is just buying a cheap cup of coffee or a cheap burger, that your review should be particularly long and detailed. It just makes no sense in relation to what the people are trying to gain. And again, it depends on your audience. You could say, well, I'm going to stand out in writing very detailed reviews about hamburgers, and then there will be hamburger fanatics that say, hey, here's a person that is looking at it from my perspective. This guy is so passionate and good at writing it in really good detail. I'm going to follow this person. But then you are really marketing to a niche. And that's why I started with have your audience in mind. And then it also helps sometimes, and I'm not promoting this, but keep in mind that it is a trick that you could use occasionally, where you may want to evoke a response. And with a response, I mean that people also like to get a call to action, or to get a feeling where you force them to think what they think. And for example, if I'm giving a review about a cup of soup and the soup was not warm, I'm going to say soup should be warm, right? Or soup should be steaming. And if someone is saying, yes, I agree, soup should be steaming hot, then the automatic response is, do I think that? Yes, I think that. And then you get that engagement moment where people connect with you. Obviously, if they disagree with you, then it will be that, which is also fine. But if you want to work on these emotions, then that is something that you can think about, that sometimes you may talk more in a we sense when it comes not necessarily to the place itself, but more like, well, soup should be eaten hot. That could be something that is your norms and values when you're talking about norms and values. Maybe you also think that a certain place is so amazing that you say, well, the town of such and such, name of the town, should be really grateful to have such a fantastic place in town. Well, if people live in that town, they say, yes, we are really proud about this restaurant, or proud about this particular business, this football club, or whatever. Let's say it's a sports club, and they do really well on the national competition level. And you say the people living in this town could be really proud. This football club is awesome. Then you're going to get people that connect with you. But again, do so in a correct manner. Don't abuse it, and only do so when it is appropriate, because people will clearly see very quickly if your reviews are sincere or if you are playing a game. And if your reviews are not sincere, then people will disconnect and give it less value. Right. Doing well with the time. So talking about followers, and this is not relevant for everyone, but I'm kind of expecting that whilst the possibility of following local guides is only available in certain cities while it is in pilot mode, I'm kind of expecting that this may actually happen, that all local guides can be followed by other Google Map users, irrespective of which city you live or if you have been pre-selected. And if that is the case, then the one reason why people will follow you is the reviews you share. So things you may want to keep in mind is you could have a consistent style of that you are passionate about and how you write, things that you focus on, that people say, hey, this is relevant, this is value for me, this is what I want to follow. So your style is something that people either like or not. And if your style is specific, then people are more likely to say, yes, this is someone that I want to connect with. Offer value, which is at the bottom. People should be able to relate to you. And maybe if you are specific with, hey, you are passionate about history, archaeology, or something in particular, or coming from a perspective like being a parent, then that by itself might give relevance to the other person to say, hey, this person is sharing stuff that I'm also interested to. And this could also just be the region, that you write about restaurants in a certain area and I go out to eat in that particular area and I see that I like your reviews. Well, I like to read all your reviews for all restaurants in this area because, hey, this is helpful for me. So this is something to keep in mind as you are looking for followers. Okay, and then I announced in the promotion for this webinar that I would talk about the hashtags. Now, it is since October last year that hashtags are no longer active on Google Maps. So this has been working for just over a year, I think, and Google has decided that hashtags are no more. And here you see a response to another person on Local Guides Connect by a Googler, Katie, saying that due to low usage, the hashtag feature has been disabled. So we now know that this is no longer available. Personally, I'm very sorry that this is the case. I did a little poll on our Facebook group, Local Guides World, where I asked the members, do you miss hashtags? Yes or no, or I don't know what you're talking about. And the large majority of people do not miss hashtags. Only a smaller group like me do miss them. And some people said, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no clue. So it's kind of reflecting clearly also, I guess, what Google has seen with the usage of hashtags on Google Maps. And sadly, they're no more. So one of the things you could do with hashtags and now have to find other ways, and is also a reason why people may want to follow you, was, for example, this post by Paul from Australia, saying that if you want to change the world and help improve the world, you could be highlighting good things that certain shops do. So if you eat in a restaurant and they have biodegradable plates or forks and knives, or you go to a store where the products that they are selling are recyclable or things like that, you could actually have themes throughout all your reviews where you use the hashtags as themes. Now, those themes or those keywords that you used as hashtag before can still be used for either creating lists or for as keywords. And I should have taken a screenshot of what reviews look like these days, but if you go to your Google Maps app and you look at reviews, you will actually see that Google Maps generates keywords for a specific for that specific place, where based on the reviews that have already been written, and then you can click on all the reviews that, for example, mention accessibility. So if that is something then you click on that keyword, and then it filters all the reviews that mention that particular keyword. The other thing that you can do nowadays that was not available before is that you can search reviews. So if you have certain keywords in mind that are not already predefined as clickable buttons or keywords on the top of the list of reviews, you can also just simply go to the search inside the review section for that point of interest, and then search for that keyword and see if people have mentioned something in particular, a product, or how clean the toilet is, or child-friendly, or whatever it is you want to know. So, excuse me. So, search and Google Maps lists are and keywords are the main thing that replace what could be previously achieved with keywords. Now, I'm also going to share with you that, and most of you are aware that, and this is me also sharing a screen share from an official rule, Google uses automated spam detection measures to remove reviews that are probably spam. Although legitimate reviews are sometimes inappropriately removed, these spam prevention measures help improve people's experiences on Google Maps by ensuring that reviews that they see are authentic, relevant, and useful. So basically, Google has automated bots that crawl over all the reviews that are being contributed every day, and the spam bots, so to say, are looking for certain characters, so you using certain things, or anyway, they are capable of recognizing things that they use as red flags. However, sometimes a red flag might be pulled up for a review that is perfectly abiding by the contribution rules. Then that review will be made private, so it's no longer visible publicly. If you look at your contributions under your Google Maps contributions, and you scroll down your reviews, you won't be able to tell at the moment. Hopefully that will change in the foreseeable future, but at the moment you won't be able to tell from your own review which reviews are set to private and which are public. So the only way you can do that is either use someone else's phone and look at your profile and then comparing the two, or open a browser with an incognito browser, and then again have the two next to one another and scroll down the two lists and find it. Well, there's actually a much easier way that you can check, and I'm going to share with you a video now, and I'm going to have to get the video to the screen, so hopefully this will work. I'm going to share with you a video where I show you a really great way of making that comparison between the two. And basically what you're going to do is, and I'm going to share this link now, you're going to copy all the text related to your review contributions on your normal contributions when you are logged in with your account, so that also the private ones are visible. Then you are going to look and copy all the review text related to the incognito, what other people will see, and then you're going to use this software that I'm about to share right now. And sorry about that. And it's called Text Compare. Although there are also other alternatives. You can all kinds of ways, software applications or apps that can do this. However, I find that using this website, which is totally free, as workflow, it takes less steps and doesn't need downloading or anything, and therefore, is still time saving in my experience. So I'm going to share you this video how I, with this Text Compare website, am able to check for private reviews. So here comes the video, and I hope this is going to work. And there it goes. So here I am logged in as myself, going to my contributions, and I'm going to the review tab. And depending on how many reviews you already have, you have to scroll down to the last review. because basically you want the computer cache to put all the reviews that you have written in its memory. And you can see that the further I scroll down, the more of these map pointers also show up, because they reflect the places that I have reviewed, and they are not being registered unless I scroll down. Then they are added to the list. So you have to go all the way down to the list. I've speeded this up. This is pre-edited, so this took at least 10 minutes to do. This is my last review, Caravanning Integral. So I can't go no further. So now I'm opening the Incognito tab, where I am also going to open my my personal profile. I should have actually copied that before, so I'm going back to the other page. I copy the URL with the review bit, not that other last bit. So right, I'm going back to my Incognito tab, right, copied to the other tab, and then I'm pasting it in, and now I will be seeing my review contributions as they are publicly available. Hence, the ones that are set to private will not show up in this list. Now, we have to do the same, and I'm skipping in time here. You have to go all the way to the bottom, and there's the last one coming up soon. I don't know how, I feel I edited most of this out. And as again, this took quite a lot of time. And there's the last one, Caravanning Integral. So I've done both of them, right? So now I have to Control A for select all and Control C for copy to get all that text. So I text a little, I highlight a little bit, I do Control A, all the text is now selected. I did Control C, I go to the place in Text Compare, and in this box on the left, I Control V, paste what I just copied. And there's all the text that I copied from the app. And as you can see at the bottom is that camping integral. Now I'm going to do the same here at my Incognito publicly available list. I also, you see, sometimes it goes wrong. Don't panic when this happens. When you accidentally touch it, it still has them all in RAM. So Control A and Control C will still take them all. And as you can see, when I paste it in, the last one is also the camping integral. So I basically copied all the text. And now I click on this compare button in the middle. And the moment that happens, it puts the two texts next to one another. It puts them in sync. And with that, I mean is they will be parallel. And as you scroll down, you will see gaps either on the left or on the right. At the moment, you can see that the business answers are showing up in the public side and the responsible by the owner, and they're not showing up on my private side. But even if there's more information on the right than there is on the left, they are syncing. And here you see the first example. There is a gap on the, oh, I don't know why I scrolled over that. That I think was a long feedback from a user, because we're looking for stuff that is written on the left, but not on the right, because the right is the public view and the left is my view, right? So here you can see that I have a review that clearly has something wrong with it, that triggered the spam filter, or maybe someone flagged this particular review. And based on that, you see it's available on the left in my overview, but it's not available publicly. I need to remember the name of the place and the location of the place. This is Papa's, somewhere in West-on-Mer, so that later on I have no difficulty on finding this place. Here's another review, Cotton Holidays. That's a big holiday campground. Holiday park, or whatever you call it. And again, apparently there's something wrong with this review. It's actually a positive review. I'm giving them lots of compliments, so I was a bit surprised. And I keep scrolling down and keep scrolling down, and I actually came to the conclusion that I only had 3 reviews that, in my case, were set to private. And there's another one where I review an experience at an airport cafe next to an airfield in the Netherlands, Hilversum. Now, again, the name of the place and the location is important to take note of, because if you now want to go back to the reviews, you can edit your reviews. And rather than having to scroll down that whole list again and finding those 3 particular reviews, in my case, that were set to private and I want to edit them, it's much easier to go to Google Maps. Oh, I want to get rid of that. Why is it not doing that? Oh, yeah. Sorry, remove. Okay, so the best way to do so is to go to your contribution page, right? And then instead of focusing on that column where you have all the reviews listed, you should focus on the map on the other side and zoom in on all these pinpointers that I pointed out before. And the great thing about that is that if you remember where the location is and you go to that airport in Hilversum in the Netherlands, or I go to that campground on the map, all I need to do is click on that review icon and I'll go straight to the review, and then I can edit my review. And the only way to enable your hidden private reviews that have been caught into the net of the spam filter, or are indeed not abiding by the contribution rules and therefore may have been manually removed, the moment you change those reviews and republish them, they will be judged as new. And they will also jump to the top. So one of the things is that the moment you republish your reviews, when you then look at your public list, you will be able to see in your public list if those reviews pop up, excuse me, in the incognito contribution page at the top of your review list. You don't have to do that whole scrolling down again because they've all been jumped to the top as recent contributions. So that's my great tip with regards to how to find those hidden reviews. I'm telling you now that these 3 reviews were my 3 reviews of all the reviews I've done in the last 3 years almost. Well, actually, yeah, this week it will be 3 years that I've been contributing to Google Maps, and I've never tested it before. It was specifically for this workshop that I wanted to show how it works, and I'd never dealt with my old reviews. So some of these reviews that I just edited were actually old. When I made the edits, I noticed that I didn't get instant proof that they were live. So it may actually take a while for the spam filter to look at them before they may be in a waiting room before they are made public. So give it a couple of days before you come to the conclusion if your edit had the desired effect of bringing your review to public. Okay, the last thing that I promised to discuss today was talk about the local guys clean the maps, talk about cleaning up and looking for poor reviews, and this won't take very long. What I was going to say is that it's not always easy to recognize fake reviews. I will talk about it in a minute, but it is usually very easy to recognize reviews that are not abiding by the rules. So if you see people that are only using the obvious plus rating formula, and that's it, just one sentences all the time, and people are or giving just one word reviews, or whatever other rules they are not abiding with by attacking people or writing stuff that is off topic, you can flag those reviews and individually then try to get these reviews removed, and thereby helping clean the map. However, I myself, when I see a certain type of review, like this one, like this one here, this person wrote a review, basically saying, "Nice, if you love the opera, then you must visit." So here's someone reviewing the opera building in a town, and is not saying anything about the building, what there was to see. This person is also giving no information whatsoever in relation to the experience and insights about what the place is like. It's basically saying, here's an opera building. If you like opera, go and see it. Well, that is something that you could also write if you haven't been there. So for me, this is a red flag. Hey, maybe this person is just hunting points. And then what you do is you click on the profile link of that person so that you can check all the reviews. And as was the case with this particular person, all the reviews were of poor quality. It was pretty obvious that this person was also writing reviews at places that he had not been, based on the low quality and the little information that was being shared. Hence, I could actually report the whole profile and the local guide itself, thereby not having to go through each individual review by that person, but by hopefully cleaning the map by just getting rid of a bad local guide doing bad stuff. So that is one thing you can do. If you look at the profile of a person where you think that someone is maybe writing a fake review, I can also say that when people are selling reviews, they usually then write reviews for people that pay them, right? And these places that pay them to write fake reviews to help their search engine optimization, or to help their rating score, are not necessarily a logical flow of where someone has been. By looking at the map, the contribution map of someone's profile, and also by zooming in, you can see, well, are people reviewing places that are nearby each other, or is it one restaurant here and one restaurant there, or one hotel here and one hotel on another continent? If that is the case, and people are only writing 2 or 3 reviews about hotels, and it is all over the place, and there is nothing else about tourist attractions or business travel type stuff that people might want to review, then you could ask yourself, how likely is it that someone writes 3 or 4 reviews and there is not a logical flow? Of course, the bad people that are selling fake reviews know that just having one review on the profile may be a giveaway, so they may have multiple reviews, but usually they are unable to write multiple detailed reviews that are really true to the location. As I said before, you can sometimes read from a review straight away, yeah, this is pretty obvious that this person was actually there. So your judgment call on analyzing if someone writes fake reviews can also be done by looking at is the types of places, the categories that are being reviewed, is that like a real person, or does it make no sense? If you only see reviews of banks, then yeah, why would a person only review banks? If someone only review restaurants, I think it's fine, because then you may have a foodie where someone says, I want to just review restaurants, I'm a foodie type of person, that's what I do. It's usually not the case with banks, in my opinion. Anyway, and if you then read some of these reviews, you will see the quality of the reviews, and maybe you will also see duplicate text. So you may see that someone is reusing the same text for different places, the same structure, like using a script and reusing it again and again. That is obviously a giveaway of someone either being a bad local guy hunting for points, or someone writing fake reviews. But also reading all the reviews of a certain place. So let's say you see a 5-star review that you think is fake, then click on the 5 stars and briefly browse through all the 5-star reviews for that place. And if you then find that certain reviews are very similar, almost as if it was the same person writing them, yet they had different, they came from different Google accounts, then it could be someone who is basically using multiple Google accounts to write the same, share the same review and fake it in that way. So it takes more time to dig into this. If it's a what's the word? If it's a claim business, you could also say, well, this is a job for the owner, I'm not going to spend much time on it. But from my personal experience, just by reading reviews, if you try to visit something and you want to find out about a place, by reading reviews, you may already say, oh, wait a minute, this looks like fake, and then you may take a note of that place, so you can go back to it, and later on when you have time, flag those fake reviews and clean the map. So I show this solo one more time so you can read what is there. And number of reviews and content is sometimes a giveaway in the profile of the person, the types of categories, the geographic spread, and also look out for duplicate text. So that's it for me right now. If you have been watching from the beginning, and watching this in the replay, For a week, I will leave the feedback form available, and I'll share the link with you in a second. But it would be really helpful if you could share your feedback in the form. So I'm going to give you a link in a minute. Whilst I'm doing that, if anyone has any questions or stuff you'd like to ask, this is the time to share so in the comments. So let me know if you have questions you want to ask. I'm now going to share that evaluation form link so that I can put it in the comments. I will also do that in the announcement to people that did the RSVP. Oh, I did something wrong there. I don't know why that is. What did I do? Oh, send. Sorry. I clicked on the wrong button. That can happen. Shorten URL. There we go. Copy. And here we go. So here comes the link to the evaluation form where you can give feedback on this particular webinar. I would appreciate it if you let me know what your thoughts are with relating to this presentation. Right, I don't see any questions yet, so I'm assuming that either I'm talking to myself right now, which is okay as well, but because I was really having a hard time deciding what time to do this, and maybe this is really a bad time. A lot of the local guys that I normally broadcast to are fast asleep. Those parts of the world, Bangladesh and India, Indonesia, Pakistan, it's quite late there right now. So maybe I should keep that in mind with the timing of this particular live broadcast. But that's part of the learning curve. The thing is, I didn't want to do it in the weekend because otherwise everything is happening in the weekend for me, and I wanted to do this during a weekday also as a test. So no Q&As. It looks like I'm not having live viewers at the moment, which is fine. Feel free to still ask questions in the comments. If you're watching this in the replay, I will still be able to attend to them because I will be notified by YouTube that you wrote a comment to me. Otherwise, please go to Local Guides Connect, the official platform for Google Local Guides, where you will be able to find a recap of this webinar and still engage with me about the information that I have shared. Thank you all for participating and watching, and see you another time. Bye-bye. Take care.